What up, family? What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Barbershop Sports Talk podcast. Make sure you follow us on our Facebook page, also on our YouTube page, and you can also follow us on Instagram at Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast, and also on Twitter at Barbershop SPOR2. I'm Trey, Fraser. I got my brother Maestro here with me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we got a special guest in the barbershop today. We have Magen Imbert here with us, who is a former Washington football team employee. I'm not going to call them by their new name because I don't like it. But yes, she's a former employee.
You're going to have to get over that, bro.
I was going to say the new name's kind of on brand.
I'm not over it, bro. I'm not over it. But
the name is
Magen,
on brand.
Magen, thank you for joining us for a few minutes to chat on the podcast. How are you, by the way?
I'm doing well, thank you. I appreciate you all taking the time and having me as a guest.
No problem. So let me just start here. So you've worked for the Washington football team for how long?
So I started out in 2006 as an intern. So I really started my career there when I was a junior in college, when I was 19 years old. And I started out in PR, and then I moved on to the television department, Larry Michaels' organization. And then I left there on my own accord in 2011 as production manager of the department. So I spent 5 seasons there. So 19 to 25 years old.
Okay. And currently, what are you doing now currently?
I am a marketing leader within the cybersecurity industry.
Okay, that's what's up.
Okay, can you just talk about briefly like roles and duties inside the organization?
Sure, yeah. So the last role I had as production manager, I was in charge of multiple television shows. So everything from our partnerships with local channels. For a while, I was producer of the Redskin Late Night program, the one that Chris Paul would host, the comedian. I also helped with all of the commercials, the video board productions, all of practice, post-game press conferences, the hype reel, like, the welcome videos when you're in the stadium. So even fun projects like highlights the team would watch to pump them up before a game. And I got to put that to like whatever music I chose. That was a pretty fun extra project for the coaching staff. So any need that they had when it came to videos, interviews, all of that stuff.
I actually remember that show. That used to come on like late Saturday nights on Channel 9, if I'm not mistaken. I remember that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out Chris Paul. It's a funny cat.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
So a couple of weeks ago, there was a congressional roundtable with, and I know you said you didn't attend, but the women that were involved with the sexual assault cases were involved with this roundtable. And at the end of it, there appeared to be some progress. Tell me, in your opinion, how that roundtable went, and what do you think moving forward Congress's role is going to be?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And a lot of folks, I think what's fascinating about this whole situation is kind of the behind the scenes that has taken place. So after the Gruden email leak happened, it really brought the situation back to the forefront because those emails were a part of this investigation. From there, we started, and mainly of the people, it was me and Melanie, along with our lawyer, meeting with congressional staff behind the scenes, having meetings throughout the week, both bipartisan support there, Republican and Democrat support, giving them as much information as they needed about the situation and why it would be really important to have Congress's support, and that this is a workplace issue that, really impacts everyone, not just the NFL team. And from there, weeks went by, and then they had the roundtable. And I think overall, I think the roundtable was great because it was on such a national public scale to really hear direct testimony from folks, including some new allegations like Tiffany Johnston, and having that corroborated by Jason Friedman. So basically, I think the point of that was just to really air out the grievances, the issues, and also shed light on the NFL's handling of the investigation and whether or not that has been appropriate. So since then, February 14th was the date that the NFL had to cooperate with Congress and provide all of the documents. And so far, they haven't produced all of them. I think they produced like 80,000 more, but I think there's still like 20 or 30,000 more that they haven't. And in my book, if the Beth Wilkinson report is not included, then that's just not sufficient. Like, fundamentally include the report from her, and then we can take a look and see if this is sufficient, because you had over 120 to 150 people participate and spend hours with investigators. To not share those findings is really a disservice. So ultimately right now, I'm hoping that we'll see some subpoenas, and I hope that Congress comes up with a hearing date.
Okay, can I backtrack for a second? For those who watch this podcast, and can we kind of give more clarity on exactly what's going on? Obviously, we're speaking about the emails and the John Gruden situation that kind of opened it up with what was going on with the Washington team. But can we kind of give, I guess, a better what's going on?
Yeah. So it's crazy to think about this. Back in July of 2020, and it's crazy, I think we're in 2022 now, the Washington Post released a bombshell article that talked about the Washington football team culture, including allegations of my former boss, Larry Michael, scouting department folks. And at that point, a few of us, including myself, I did not participate in that first story, but afterward thought, I'm going to participate anonymously. Well, that weekend, because naturally people are reaching out to me, Megan, are you okay? I had no idea this was the type of workplace you were subjected to. And then I had a few conversations and learned about there were two explicit videos that from 2008 and 2010 that we learned existed and were produced at the direction of owner Dan Snyder. And I believe that, and I believe this to be an annual project. We only have those tangible 2 copies. However, when I learned of that, and being that my department produced those behind my back, I had no idea. I was so angry. I was like, put my name on this. I'm lawyering up. I'm going on record, and I will vehemently talk about that, because in my book, the harassment and the treatment is one terrible subject. But then this other thing where they were making these explicit videos is an entirely bigger crime. And who knows if there's other things that we don't know about. So fast forward, there's been a 10-month investigation by a lady named Beth Wilkinson, a very reputable attorney in DC. The NFL took over oversight of that investigation, and they never produced any type of written report, which is like the first time something like this has never resulted in a written report. It was an oral update to Roger Goodell. And what we found out the Friday after the roundtable was that Roger Goodell and Dan Snyder, or the NFL and the Commanders, went into a common interest agreement, basically stating they have similar legal interests here. And in my book, the whole investigation was fraudulent at that point. So they're covering up the actual findings and now not cooperating fully with Congress. And now the NFL is blaming Dan Snyder in a sense that, well, we would love to release this stuff for you, but he won't allow it. So the situation right now is, wait, Dan Snyder is going to release findings that are going to implicate himself?
Right. So for clarity, the overall issue is what's stopping, I guess you guys, not you guys, but Congress from making some type of a ruling that, something inappropriate was happening, is from him actually releasing those types of reports that would implicate him into doing such things.
So the NFL and Dan Snyder basically can decide what documents are shared with Congress. This is why I want the hearing and subpoena power. Now, what we're learning from like the Capitol Hill riots is, do people actually show up if they're subpoenaed? And if they don't, are they then in contempt of court? So I'm very curious to see how quickly Congress will decide if what the NFL produced was sufficient enough. And as I said, if that Beth Wilkinson report isn't in there, release the report. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see a hearing and some subpoenas. And then when that happens, my hope is they're just not kicking this down the road. Like we're talking, it's already been 20 months. 20, right. But the good news is now that it's with Congress, more and more people are starting to come forward, as we saw with Tiffany Johnston, who didn't originally participate in the investigation. So I'm hoping more people are brave and they're starting to come out like, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So go ahead, Trey. I'm sorry. No, okay. Go ahead, Trey. I'm sorry.
What about the idea that sponsorships for the football team can back out of their association with the club? Because I read somewhere earlier today that there was a sponsor, and I forget the name, but they decided to disassociate themselves from the football team. If we get more of those situations where sponsors decide, I don't want our business involved with this particular organization, do you think that would help speed up some of the progress being made?
Well, when the name changed, it was because of massive sponsors threatening to pull out their dollars.
That's right.
So if anyone's on Twitter, the handle would be Natty, Natty BDC. This individual has been a third generation fan, him and his wife. They created boycottdan.com. And it's amazing, the website they put together. It has all of the NFL sponsors, including all of the Washington Commanders sponsors, that someone can go in, fill out their email, and basically massively blast the email addresses, whether it be CEOs, media relations departments of these major entities. They've been starting to hear back, and it only launched, I think, last weekend. So I think they are upwards of almost 7,000 email sends in a short period of time. And MedLiminal is the one that you're referencing that actually came out and said in their email, they said, we will not be continuing our partnership. We're sincerely disappointed in the Commander's handling of both facts and allegations surrounding their organization. And we ask that you please remove us from any list further mailing related to this issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh. So
progress. My job something.
Progress for sure. So I guess my next question is, and I guess with everything that's going on within the Washington Commanders organization, how do you feel about the idea of this maybe spreading off to other teams and maybe other teams being involved in some of these things? Or do you believe that these workplace issues are relevant or prevalent in other organizations?
Well, sexual harassment is a U.S. issue when it comes to workplace environments. I don't know the stats offhand, but a lot of women and now men experience this in the workplace. I think with relative to our situation, the fact that the NFL is so involved in covering this up, it makes you wonder, what are they hiding? What aren't they sharing? And the way that I understand it from people that I know that have worked at the team, they might work at the league now, or they might work at another team. So it is systemic within the environment. And the Gruden emails, he wasn't even really a part of any of those franchises at the time that he was emailing with Bruce Allen. So it just goes to show that this is a larger issue at play here. So absolutely think that this is something that across the league, in the way that Roger Goodell and his investigators have handled this, it sheds light on a bigger problem. And then as you see, the controversies around the coaching and 70% of the league being Black. And, I think this really sheds light on, in my book, it's Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter kind of colliding right now. These are massive issues around diversity, equity, inclusion that need to be addressed. And people call me out. They're like, oh, you're calling for cancel culture. That's not what I'm calling at all. I love the game of football. And I hope that, or I think in order for society to evolve, they need to be able to address where they're at and where they're trying to go, admit that there's been some mistakes, and be able to hold powerful, rich people accountable too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Okay, I got to make it make sense question. Why does Dan Snyder bring in an investigator to investigate something they're possibly trying to implicate him in?
So I think this is where I'd like to hear from Beth Wilkinson or Roger Goodell or Dan Snyder under subpoena, because it's not clear to me how this whole thing came about. From my perspective, it would make sense if, say, the league wanted Snyder to be investigating and doing this thing. I don't think the league would want to foot the bill. So I would assume they would make Dan Snyder foot the bill. But does that make Dan Snyder the client or the NFL the client? And like, so that's where the whole privilege conversation, common interest agreement, that whole thing comes to play. So when we got involved, and my lawyers, everyone, the NFL ended up agreeing that anybody could participate in the investigation and not worry about their previous NDAs if they had one. So I thought that was a pretty big step, but at the same time, what we've seen now is that people participated and they really came forward with information that is damning to probably the league itself. And, you know, at this point, we are looking for transparency and accountability.
Okay, Trey, if you got a question, go ahead. I have one more question. That's where I'm done.
No, you can go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, my question is, okay, so the hearing just passed, and this is roundtable. I'm sorry, roundtable. That is important to clarify.
I'm ready for my hearing. Let's go.
Yeah, that's important to clarify. Okay. It feels, and I'm not super. I think Trey would be the president of the two of us who are more involved news wise into the story. I'm just a regular guy who just kind of flips up and down his Twitter timeline, and it feels, and you can, and please correct me if it doesn't feel that way to you. It feels like this roundtable kind of came and went. Now, when I asked Trey about it, he said he felt like maybe with it being Super Bowl week, and maybe that was the reason why maybe Twitter is not kind of moving around this, or am I just following the wrong people?
Well, so right after the roundtable, Congress came out and stated they're going to give the league until February 14th to produce all documents. So This interview is February 15th. We know the NFL's produced some documents. It's not clear yet what documents and if it's sufficient. And as I mentioned before, if that Wilkinson report from Beth is not in there, in my book, it's not sufficient. So I think we just have to watch it closely over the coming days as to, what do they feel? Are they going to issue subpoenas? Do they then call for a hearing?
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's more of a wait thing.
She got 10 to the dog.
Sorry, my dog. I know. She already broke something.
Uh-oh.
Can I have
go
a
ahead,
second?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You're recording this, right? You can edit it?
Yeah. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up, Maestro, because it was kind of going to lead into my my next question about the coverage of the event.
Yeah, because I mean, I like I said, I'll admit that I'm not as involved as you are, but it don't seem like normally that kind of stuff does hit my timeline, and it's not.
Yeah, and I tell you what, and I mentioned it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. I saw Channel 9. It was Channel 9's Twitter account that promoted the roundtable, and I saw nobody else that was of like importance in the area really push it.
Yeah, it was
Channel 9, and then there was people that maybe follow Channel 9 on Twitter.
It seemed like maybe because I'm if I'm understanding her correctly, it is because we're waiting for some more findings to come because they had to submit some things by yesterday. So
yeah, right.
It sounds like maybe. Yeah, it seems like maybe when some of these findings get found and reported, we get right back onto it.
Right.
I would also just say, from my perspective too, it's like, I don't know what it's like to go through 80,000 documents or whatever. Like that seems like a lot. And how much time do they need to make it fair to assess what they gathered, Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
I gave her a bone. She'll be occupied for a little bit.
No,
the magic of editing. The magic of editing. We be all right.
It's all good, Megan. And while you were going, I was just telling Maestro that I was glad that he asked that question because it was going to kind of lead into my point and sort of a question towards you is that this roundtable, I felt like wasn't pushed hard enough by the media. I saw Channel 9 promote it on Twitter, and I saw some people that maybe follow Channel 9 on Twitter push it also, but it didn't seem like people like the Washington Post or Channel 7, Channel 4, it didn't seem like any of the other media outlets in the DC area was really pushing this thing to let everybody know. And then I think the other part too is that, if I'm not mistaken, this roundtable was on a website someplace and streamed online. Was that correct?
Yeah, it was live streamed and recorded, so people can go and check it out. And the good thing about it being recorded, you can kind of stream along and hear the testimonies and everything. So yeah, right. it was live streamed. And I think the media definitely has been covering it, but I'm just very hypersensitive to it. I'm hearing it and seeing it.
Yeah.
But I will say there definitely are some news outlets that might be covering it more regularly or looking for, even I know Darren Haynes just reported on the Boycott Dan site, like really going a step further into like, how are fans getting involved? So it just depends on who's most active, and some of the reporters might be a little bit more active, but certainly, I mean, the Washington Post certainly has been all over this very deeply.
Were you at the Seahawks game, the Monday night game this past season? Were you at that protest outside the stadium?
Yeah, so myself and Melanie Coburn, we decided we would show up with our hoodies on, and we didn't know what to expect, if fans were going to participate or not. But I thought, because I don't live in the area anymore, I thought being in town for Thanksgiving, it would be a good statement just to show up, especially because they advertised it as their Inspired Change game. And from my perspective, we are also inspiring change, like at the most fundamental grassroots level. And so a lot of press definitely came out to talk to us. And it was a good opportunity to educate some fans that really had no idea, or they knew bits and pieces. But I think it was a good opportunity to start to talk more about it. And we certainly had media coverage there. But yeah, it's just like even the owners meeting in New York City, we wrote letters, and Anna and Melanie actually went to New York and hand delivered those. And again, zero response. In fact, that was the day that Roger Goodell said he won't release any findings in order to protect us, which now we absolutely know was completely false because of the common interest agreement. And it just really upset me that he had the audacity he could have said nothing, but the fact that he said, "Oh, we're not going to do this to protect us," and we're sitting there like we're literally right there in the lobby, I just think the whole thing's been handled poorly.
That's crazy. And to add to that, I'm sorry, Maestro, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Because my question was, I know I said I had one more question, but I do have one more question. But go ahead.
Okay, no doubt. Just to add to that, Megan. So I remember the coverage of that Monday night game, and I'm kind of a weird guy when it comes to paying attention to detail and paying attention to how networks cover certain teams, certain weeks. So I know all the Monday night games. I know the Monday night crew, they go to the stadiums, they go outside the stadiums, and they showcase all the fans going crazy. Like if you're at Bill Stadium, they're showing fans jumping on tables and all kinds of things like that. And that's sort of kind of been their tradition. But that particular week, it just so happened that the Monday night crew was doing their pregame show from the studio back in their ESPN studio. And I got to thinking, I'm like, wait, they picked this week to, stay in the studio. And then I get on Twitter, and then I'm seeing photos of you guys out there with protests. I see you guys got the hashtag release the report t-shirts on. And I'm like, yo, this should be like pumped up. Like everybody should be knowing about this, what's going on outside the stadium. So I find ESPN to be complicit in not promoting you guys and, your movement and what's going on here. And that may have something to do with the NFL and them contracted with the network. Goodell probably said, hey, y'all stay in the studio. Y'all don't go to the game tonight, whatever. But that's just me. That's what I kind of took from it.
I think it's a good observation. And over the past 19 months, we have seen certain folks like Vanilla cover it, right? But what I will say is after the roundtable and Goodell's press conference, someone like Pro Football Talk, Mike Fiore, is that his name?
Florio.
Fiore, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
He's really done a nice job of keeping this story out there. And this has happened, I would say, over the past 2 weeks. I think the roundtable really helped us because before it was like, okay, there's allegations just based on what we're willing to talk about on record. Whereas watching testimony and watching people actually speak on their experiences in front of Congress, it's a really big deal. And I think now we're really seeing people being bold, just like Jim Trotter during that press conference, asking the question of Goodell about the coaching. Like you're going to start to see people really having kind of a conflict around like, what's their moral compass? How does this align with their value system? Like, how are you able to stay silent? And this is what we know. And more stuff will come out. Like it's inevitable, right? To keep in mind that the few people that they chose to do the roundtable, like I obviously wasn't there, but that we're just a small group. We're talking over 120 to 150 people. Right. And it takes a lot of courage even to be able to speak out, right? So I think it's kind of like the iceberg. Somebody put a graphic up. It's like the roundtable, but then the Wilkinson report. It's like, it's just what the people that were comfortable being able to speak publicly as well. So we don't know what else was reported. I know other things that I think are in that report. They're not my stories to share though. So that's another reason why I'm just aggressively like putting my name to this.
My final question, I promise. What are your feelings of not closure? I think these types of things, racism, sexual harassment, I think these are ongoing battles. I don't think there's ever like a moment where that stops or where race. I don't believe it. But what do you hope is your what is the what is the end game? I guess and I don't like that word because I don't believe in it. But what is the end game in all this for you?
It's a good question. I think the answer evolves over time as this progresses. And I've always been very passionate about different causes. So for me personally, I think this has allowed me to be even more confident in my voice and being more resilient and hopefully inspiring other people. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I think there's a path there, whether maybe I have a podcast of my own one day or something. But for us as a group, we're looking for transparency and accountability. And accountability to me is sharing what's in that actual report and having appropriate consequences. And I don't believe the Snyders should be the owners of that football team. I also believe Roger Goodell probably needs to step down based on how he's handled this situation. And then further, there's workplace legislation probably that Congress could make happen as well. The use of NDAs has been a big subject. So I think there's a few things and it's kind of constantly evolving, but fundamentally Roger Goodell, the Snyders, there needs to be some accountability for how they've handled this situation. And then the explicit videos, I'd like to see criminal investigation. And who knows if there's other things, but really not have this stuff covered up and not have the rich and powerful be able to get away with things like this and treat people like this. I want to see, if you watch the Super Bowl, Billie Jean King got on the field, right? And talked about Title IX. That was 50 years ago. And here I am 50 years now with these fellow people on record trying to ensure that young women and young men can work in a safe environment in sports. And it just goes to show that there's so much progress that needs to be made. So I think my end goal personally is kind of ever evolving.
Yeah. And I personally want to say to you that I'm sorry that you and other women have had to experience this within this organization.
Thank you.
All right,
Maestro,
I'm good. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. No problem. Just before you leave, I just want you to let our listeners know where can they find you, your social media, and what do you have going on in the future?
Yeah, so I've become very active on Twitter the past 2 years. It's just really at my name, so at MEGANIMBERT. So I've been really vocal with the press, podcasts, all that kind of stuff. So occasionally you'll see my dog on there, but yeah, it's really been for me personally, work and this has taken up a lot of my life. But yeah. I'm down in Texas, so it's a little bit different. I do come back up to the DMV from time to time to see family, but right now I'm like, we're just full throttle ahead on this situation, and yeah, hopefully a vacation in the future.
No doubt. No wonder you were saying Central Time when we were trying to, hook this up. Okay. That's okay. Well, Magen, thank you so much for
appreciate on the
podcast with us. And we hope that you meet your goals within this movement. And one more time, hashtag release the report, hashtag sell the team, Dan. I'm all the way on that.
Well, we appreciate it. And the fan support has been really nice, because at the end of the day, we all want to get back to watching this game that we appreciate and like so much. But can't forget that players and the employees behind the scenes are also really impacted. And, it would just be really nice to see progress for everybody.
Yep. Cut all the nasty stuff out.
Yeah. Get the messy people up out of there.
Yeah.
And Larry Michael, that's the radio play-by-play guy, right?
He was the voice of the team. Yeah. So he did the play-by-play, and he was, did like Redskin Nation, all those different shows.
Yeah, he's the one that kind of rolled out before the report.
Well, he was allowed to retire before the first Washington Post story hit. So that is another reason why I think, him and Dan are close. And it's hard. I've known Larry since I was 19 years old, and he was my boss. But, he should be held accountable.
He should be held accountable 100%. I would just get ready to say it's all nice and dandy, but you should be held accountable for your sins. That's for certain.
And this is honestly, and I've been very vocal too, people like him, they can get ahead of Congress. They can go to Congress and talk to them. They can get ahead of it and have an opportunity to put their truth out there, in that type of situation. Because I do believe, like, the thing is, we're not going to be silenced. We've been pushing and pushing and pushing. Like, if we've done this now for almost 2 years, we will keep doing this. We haven't been about a payout. We didn't have a lawsuit, right? So I would just really like for people to just save us all some time and do the right thing.
Right.
Yep. No doubt.
The world we live in.
Yep.
She's
Thank you
Magen
so much.
Imbert.
Appreciate
she's Magen Imbert. And we thank you for jumping on the Barbershop Sports Talk podcast.
Awesome. Anytime.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye.